Hello and welcome to our show. Today's episode is quite special as we have a distinctive guest and we're also celebrating a remarkable occasion. We're honored to have with us in the studio today the 12th President of the American University in Cairo, President Francis Ricciardone. Welcome to AUCTV.
Thank you. What fun to be with you.
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. So, Mr. President, AUC is celebrating 100 years of being here in Egypt, and this is making it one of the oldest universities here. This is something that makes all of us proud. From your own point of view, what is the most important achievement that AUC have done in the last decade?
I think the most important achievement of the past decade is that which will also power us into the second one. And that is to do what the first president, Mr. Watson, said is our mission. And that's to serve, it sounds a little mundane now, but then it was radical and different, to serve as a bridge between East and West, with Egypt on the one hand, and really between Egypt and the world. But at that time, functionally, it meant Egypt and the West. We fulfilled that role beautifully, spectacularly, I think. And you could look at different periods. The first half of that 100 years, we concentrated on bringing American inquiry-based liberal arts education to Egyptians. And the success is measured in the wonderful graduates who went on to become leaders in business, in government, in the arts, in journalism. I understand we had the first journalism school in the Middle East, not just in Egypt. So it was greatly successful. But then we took on a new evolution of that to become a true two-way bridge. And that is to bring to Egypt people from outside Egypt who wanted to learn about Egypt. Whether in Egyptology, the study of the pharaonic period, or the more recent periods of Egypt, layer after layer after layer coming up to the contemporary times, or studying contemporary issues here, political science, sociology, anthropology, economics, business, global affairs and public policy. We bring foreigners from all over the world to the most welcoming country in the Middle East, the most accessible country, the most diverse and fascinating country. I'm a little prejudiced because I've spent some of my life here. So that's been our mission, really, for the second half. Let's have a true global exchange of ideas in both directions. And we have so many advances and achievements in that. We basically, it's fair to say, invented, or I could say patented, the study of Arabic for foreigners through our CASA program. People refer to materials developed by AUC professors for foreigners like me who had to struggle to study Arabic. The study of Islamic art and architecture. In so many fields, we've brought foreigners to this country and they fall in love with this country, or indeed with each other. My own daughter came to this university while I was a diplomat here, and she met the love of her life, and they married, and so he was here too, so I now have a AUC daughter and AUC son-in-law who met thanks to AUC. And I have a grandson thanks to AUC.
So adding to the achievements that AUC did in the last decade, what are the achievements that AUC aspire to accomplish in the next 10 years or decade?
Sure. Well, a very special emphasis. I like to look around and see what are our core strengths. Where do we have the most potential to have impact? It's always been, I think, AUC's interest in having a positive impact on the world. And that's what our graduates are known for their creativity and resourcefulness and their sense of service. So what do we have that really are assets that are unique and will help us do that? One area of emphasis that I think is just waiting to be developed is our strength in the arts and in the humanities. This is an age of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's important. But in the most advanced parts of the world, they don't focus only on STEM, they focus on STEAM, S-T-E-A-M, with A standing for the arts. Okay? Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We have fine arts faculty and an arts tradition, fine facilities. We need more. We need more studio space, for example. More display space. We need to serve not only downtown at our campus that we're rededicating this weekend as the Tahrir Cultural Center, also out here at the Tajamma al-Khamis, we have to serve as a kind of cultural engine and a service, starting with always our students first and our faculty behind them, but then to the general public, to have a place to do more than go shopping and go to restaurants. You can shop and you can go to restaurants in the 5th District, but we need to be a place where you can count on almost every night of the week or day of the week to come for a great lecture in any of our disciplines. Doesn't have to be the humanities. Or a film club that is showing old films or contemporary films with the incredible commentary and insight that our faculty have to offer. Theater. We have student theater, but we also can serve with friends of AUC's theater department to make this available again to the public and to our students. Art, music. There's so many things that we do on this campus, of rich human intellectual activity that we need to celebrate and let the world know about and let the world participate in as we accomplish our educational mission.
So, Mr. President, are there any plans to further improve or expand the liberal arts education here in the university?
Yes, there are. So we're doing it sort of together with our downtown campus. All these things take resources. Thanks to a very generous gift by an Egyptian who cares about this country and wants to, Mr. Naguib Sawiris, we're reopening a good part of our downtown campus, preserving its functions for our continuing education and other our CASA program. But we're fixing it up beautifully. I hope you'll come down if you haven't already and take pictures. It's amazing. We now have more art exhibition spaces. We have 6 beautiful rehabilitated Class A museum quality exhibition spaces with lighting, beautiful floors, colors, all of that.
And it came to our knowledge that the opening of this cultural center will be part of the Centennial celebration. Is it correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. We're kind of having 2 bites at the apple. If you're available, in fact, for media, tomorrow afternoon, we're having a special sort of pre-screening so people can move cameras around and all of that.
That's in Tahrir campus?
In the Tahrir campus, the Tahrir Cultural Center. And then that evening will be special invitation, family and friends only. So it's a kind of, I won't say a soft opening, but it's a pre-opening.
But it's exclusive for AUCians?
For invited guests, and that includes any AUCians. The really big public opening will be immediately after the speeches. We have speeches and ceremonies from noon to 2 in Ewart Hall, special films, which is quite wonderful. I'm sure AUCTV will be covering it.
Yeah, I believe I'm sure they're covering it tomorrow.
You'll love it. And then right after that, we're going to be doing a very AUC thing. We're going to have a dedication of the Cultural Center by dedicating a plaque to a person who was not an AUC alumna, but she was an Egyptian feminist leader that I don't know whether you've heard of, but her name is Doria Shafi, Doria Shafi. She passed away in, I think, the late 70s. She gave a speech in February of 1951 at Ewart Hall, and it was to be a women's rally, a women's congress.
I think it's 1919 with the wife of Saad Zaghloul. I think she's one of those icons who were in the front line fighting for women's rights. I think so.
I need to find out about that. I didn't know that. The wife of Saad Zaghloul was at Ewart Hall?
No. I think that she was in 1919. She was actually fighting for more women rights and more liberation for them.
She was born, I think, 1907 or 8, so she was young, but she famously came out as a girl. I mean, I think she was an undergraduate maybe. She gave a speech, I think, in the presence of Hoda Sha'rawi, really one of the great feminist pioneers of Egypt. And then she became kind of a disciple, a follower of Hoda Sha'rawi, and really learned and came of age as a social activist under Hoda Sha'rawi. She went off and led part of her life, was educated in France, came back and forth a few times. And in 51, you have to think back, that was just the very end of the monarchy. Nobody knew it was the end of the monarchy. It was February of 51. She gave this speech to about 1,500 women at Ewart Hall.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And she led them. She had 2 demands. Her movement did. She published a magazine called Bint Nil, And we have that. We have a collection of the originals, and we have the edition that reported her speech, and it's on display at the Tahrir Cultural Center. It's open to the page with the photograph of her speaking. I mean, imagine how moving. At Ewart Hall, and she called on the women to leave the hall and march on Parliament to demand the right to vote and the right to hold public office.
That's very impressive.
Yes. It is.
Actually.
And so we need to tell that story.
Definitely.
There's no place in Egypt with a plaque that tells that. There's a book published by AUC Press that tells that story by Cynthia Nelson. So we're going to unveil a plaque to her. Another AUC connection. She is the mother of 2 AUC professors, one retired, Jehan Ragai, and Aziza Lozi, who's an associate provost. So those 2 daughters, those 2 AUC alumni daughters, the professors at AUC, have that connection. So AUC is woven into the history of modern Egypt. You asked about, leadership and impact.
So, Mr. President, is this why the Centennial celebration taking place on Tahrir campus, not in AUC's new campus?
Actually, the celebrations will take place on both campuses.
Okay.
This is just the start. This is the opening of the year. And throughout the year, we're going to have a number of such events.
Celebrations?
But the huge celebration is taking place on Saturday on Tahrir campus,
the
right?
opening one.
The opening one.
Why is that? Yeah.
Because for many people, it's nostalgic. That's where we began. So it's sort of logical. It's the original building. We're fixing it up. A lot of people, even some comparatively younger people, they won't seem so young to you, but anyone who graduated as late as June 2008, as my daughter did, that's only 11 years ago now, remembers the old campus with unbelievable nostalgia. I mean, they can remember so much. It was very tightly jammed with people.
Compared to
here. And there were 3,500 students at that time. Now we're 6,500 students out here. So there's real nostalgia, and thanks again to this gift, we've opened up a lot of space. Under President Anderson, we took down an ugly old building after we moved and made it a garden. That garden is now a beautiful performance space and relaxation space where we will have music and things going on all Saturday afternoon. From noon to 2 at Ewart Hall, we will have the speeches by the high-ranking officials and some special films and so forth. Then we dedicate the plaque to Doria Shafiq. Then the 2 exhibits. The exhibits are really special. Again, AUC connections all over the place.
We're super excited about this. Moving on to AUC life, there are a lot of, AUC witnessed a lot of changes with regards to the policies, such as the tobacco ban, for instance, in order for AUC to have a better ranking globally. So are we anticipating any changes in the coming policies in the coming years?
Policies are made to change and develop and evolve as an institution grows and as the world changes. So, of course, policies will always change. What we're trying to do is strengthen the process of policy making and communications. We've got to do a better job on that here, it seems to me. There was some confusion, a lot of confusion about that in the past. We are in higher education, American higher education, and there's a tradition of what they call shared governance. That means a widely consultative process. So people are always calling for changes in policy or objecting to changes of policy, or both. The important thing is to have the right channels and institutions to do that effectively and respectfully and nimbly. In response to changes in the world and opportunities and
so
things
will
that come
decision making sort of be like a job for everyone here on campus, all the AUC community?
It is in a very real sense. People participate because we are an American institution of higher education. Now people will say, and I've just come from a meeting where people were complaining that they were not consulted enough. Fair enough, people will always have different views. At the end, though, there is a very well-defined sort of code of who has what responsibilities. We are registered in the United States of America. We operate under Egyptian law, and that causes some overlap of 2 sets of laws that mostly work well enough together, but there's some areas of where they're not identical, let's say. And we have people both nationalities, many nationalities. Sometimes the same individual have 2 or 3 nationalities. So we start with law, and we are in fact registered and incorporated in the state of Delaware in the United States. Under that, we have our bylaws, and that's what's registered in the state of Delaware. The bylaws give fiduciary responsibility, that is to say accountability, to our Board of Trustees. As president, I am, under the bylaws, a voting member of the Board of Trustees. They have broad oversight responsibility. They can set broad policies, but then they devolve to the administration not only the authority, but the responsibility, the accountability for the development of policies consistent with the bylaws, the laws of the United States of America, the laws of Egypt, and then just general good order and good governance. As the administration, we go beyond that to invite shared governance in the form of consultation through formal mechanisms and informal ones. The formal ones are, of course, the chain of the hierarchy. From the provost, the chief academic officer, to the deans, the associate provosts and assistant provosts, the deans, and the department chairs. That's the one very formal one, and that is an accountable chain. The provost is evaluated in his performance by the trustees and myself. The deans are evaluated on their performance. They are accountable for the allocation of resources and so forth. But then there's a Senate. I wanted to mention the Senate because that's extremely important. We consider that also a vitally important advisory body. It's in the Senate that people that are elected by their peers, it's mainly a faculty Senate.
Not the student Senate.
In addition, there's a student government, the student sort of legislature, the judiciary, and the student union, who have representatives in the University Senate. The University Senate has the numbers it has. I'm sure you've done your homework. Largely faculty, and it's largely faculty issues, but they take very seriously the responsibility to address the university-wide issues. The administration always participates and listens very carefully, responds honestly and candidly. That's our responsibility. But at the end of the day, the Senate is not accountable in the way that, except to its constituents in a way, but they are not evaluated, hired or fired on the basis of their performance, whereas administrators are. We have to perform, or we're no longer welcome to be here. We're rewarded if we perform, we move on if we don't.
Sure. So we want to know from you, from as a former renowned ambassador, what's the role that AUC can play in enhancing the cultural diplomacy in Egypt as well as the Middle East region?
Oh, it's such a powerful role. When I was an official of the government, I had a lot to work with. I had the talking points that would come from Washington, the official policy, the speeches of the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, the speeches in Congress. You have all that formal stuff. And that's what the public kind of sees and responds to one way or another. Often they didn't like American foreign policy. Fine. What I found always worked was the things that Egyptians and Americans are passionate about, so that all else falls aside. And typically education, meaning scientific research, collaboration in the arts, collaboration in business, all of those human activities where collaboration is necessary or exchange of ideas, those things is where the magic happens. So I found as a diplomat that the cultural connections were way more important than the talking points from Washington. I had to use those talking points, and I did, and I believed them, and I used them. But I loved going to the field of a small farmer and USAID small farmer program, and seeing how their change of crops had changed their lives when they'd use a new crop and make them richer, or the village education program, and see how the donation of a sheikh al-balad, of a little plot of land, combined with a USAID grant to build a building, combined with the government staffing it, how that partnership among people, national government, and the foreign USAID, how that changed people's lives in a way that just was so moving. And the whole village would be so proud.
So excited about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So I got to do all that. Or would promote small businesses. Ala Fikra, I was on a TV program last night that'll be aired tomorrow night.
Okay.
It won't be as good as this. I only had one AUC interviewer.
Yeah. Our pleasure.
And now I have two AUC interviewers. There's Mona Shazli.
It's Mona Shazli.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it. Yeah.
So she found some old archival pictures.
Okay.
And a couple of them were of me going to the provinces doing things. One was me feeding a sugar cane into a sugar cane crushing machine to make sugar cane juice
One of the
and
most
sugar cane candy.
yes.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Which I was doing in Asyut. That kind of experience is something I treasure in life. And my going there as a big shot American really touched, the owner of that sugarcane shop. He might still have a photo from that time. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure he hangs it there.
It could be. I was up in Asyut. But then, I brought world attention, because foreign cameras would come, to beautiful things about Egypt. Beautiful Egyptians doing wonderful things. So all the ugliness that's in the world media about people killing each other, if all you pay attention to is that, you would think America is a land where madmen shoot up schools every day, and out here it's a place where madmen cut off heads
Just
and blow
defying
things
the
up.
stereotypes that are portrayed sometimes in the media.
So the people-to-people cultural diplomacy means you cannot deal with each other as a cartoon cutout, a stereotype. You deal with you look in the eye, and you stumble through with imperfect English or imperfect Arabic, and you laugh, and you eat together. And you play together in sports. That's the magic. That's what I loved in cultural diplomacy.
Mr. President, AUC have been an educational hub for a lot of students. It opens its door always for diverse community and having students. So my question is, are there any plans to have more funds at AUC to provide sort of scholarships and fellowships for students from all over the world?
You bet, exactly so. Both that too, scholarships and fellowships for foreigners to come here, for our Egyptian students to have at least, summers abroad or a term abroad, because not everybody can afford that.
Yes.
So certainly scholarships is one way, but even more importantly, I think, so when I lived in Garden City and another job, and my daughter was here, there was something like 672 Americans alone, not just foreigners, but Americans in 2008. We're down to well under 50 Americans now. I don't know what the most current one is. Foreigners, our numbers are coming back up a little bit, but we don't have even, I think, 350 foreigners. Maybe we're back to 400 foreigners, including the small number of Americans. So what are we doing about that? We're reducing the tuition for foreigners, which was more than twice what we were charging Egyptians.
Due to the paying in dollars?
Yeah, they pay in dollars. They're still paying in dollars.
Okay.
But the currency devaluation threw everything out of line. But apart from that, we're also marketing AUC and we're marketing Egypt. We're going all over the United States. We've employed, professional firms. I speak with groups all the time. We have I don't know if you have an international reach with AUC TV. I would love to think your app will go around the world. And
We hope
shows
so.
it go viral. We should think about how to make it go viral.
Yes.
But we want foreigners, especially Americans, to see all the good things, the good attractive things that are coming to this country. Convincing foreigners that it's safe isn't enough. I want Americans to know what I know, that this is more than safe, it's welcoming, and it's exciting. Egypt. And then within that, if you're a student or a scholar, AUC is American standard. We just got accredited again for another 8-year period by Middle States. That is hugely important in marketing us. Since then, we've signed agreements with Harvard. We have our first Harvard PhD student in Egyptology on campus now.
We're so proud of
Yeah,
this.
and I just signed that in October.
Yes.
We had King's College London here. I was there in October. We signed an agreement. A few days ago, I was in Minister Hala Saeed's office, signing an agreement with them and the British ambassador for us to train tens of thousands of Egyptian bureaucrats, civil servants, to go to the new capital. We will be training them on this campus. That kind of thing is powerful. It means in London, people will be hearing AUC, 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 Egypt in association with King's College.
Yes, and that might motivate actually more people from the United Kingdom to come. And so adding to that, Do you have any plans in adding more schools to AUC's academic offerings, like adding a school of pharmacy, for example? Is that in the plan?
There are several plans. These are the kinds of things, again, the Faculty Senate plays a big role, and the Provost Council. Really, this comes up in the academic side. In a community like ours, good ideas can be anywhere. The president has no monopoly on good ideas. On the contrary. And at AUC, we're bubbling with good ideas. I have heard a lot of discussion about this. A school of pharmacy, people ask about it, but I know some plans that have developed along those lines. When I first arrived a couple of years ago, Dean Hassan Fawal brought what seemed like a very appealing idea to establish an Institute for Global Health and Human Ecology. And that's largely in the public health area, having to deal with the environmental hazards. Pharmacology comes into it a bit, toxicology, and largely public health policy on how to improve human health through policy means. So I've not heard any serious discussion about doing a school of pharmacology or a medical school. Sometimes people say, "Oh, why don't you have a medical school?" And my answer is,
that's a popular question.
Yeah.
Why don't we have medicine on campus?
then the simple answer is $1 billion.
Oh, okay.
Give me $1 billion and we'll start a medical school. I would love to have one, but it is usually complex. At AUB, there's a very wonderful medical school, but it drives all else. It's kind of the tail that wags the dog in a way. It dominates AUB's brand and thinking and how people in this part of the world admire AUB for its medical school. I don't see us getting a medical school soon, but this institute under Dean Hassan, and by the way, there's elements even in GAP, Global Affairs and Public Policy. We do some public policy work, teaching and research on public health. So that's one initiative. I also understand that the provost is exploring with the deans and others in the faculty, and I don't know if it's in any formal way before the Senate yet, the idea of bringing together a new school. You know how we're organized into schools here for art, architecture, and design. It's just a way of reorganizing what we're already doing, putting more resources on it, and coming back to the issue you asked earlier, Laila, about plans for the future. I believe, nothing's guaranteed, but Egypt could be at a moment of renaissance culturally. There's stability has returned, economic reforms are underway, there's stresses and strains, but there's a degree of education in this country. There's a middle class that demands cultural activities beyond going to the movies and so forth. And who is poised to offer it if not AUC? Really, we have to be the catalysts, I think, with the bright minds that we fuel and stimulate here and turn loose on the world with all their creativity. And then having the spaces like the Tahrir Cultural Center with these exhibit spaces, performance spaces, what we're doing out here. So this idea that the provost has mentioned, it's not formally written down yet. It's still in the...
Still on discussion?
It's sort of like, it's a sitting around a cafe thinking, wouldn't it be great?
Thinking about ideas,
So it has to be reduced to a business plan before we can then raise funds for it and the rest.
And take action.
So that's one thing that's it's still real early in the discussion, but there's no secret about it. And it's not a top-down decision. It hasn't come to me for decision other than the provost saying, "What do you think? Wouldn't this be great?" I said, "Yeah, it'd be great. How do we let's get our best minds together and think about it."
But if we have a plan for it, we can start having funds and raising funds for having such a thing.
There's a process, I mean, if you're going to raise funds, that's a serious endeavor. You need a really well thought through plan.
A good business plan.
Yeah,
definitely.
that has to hook other people. We're asking people to invest, not donate, but invest in the future of this country in a way the returns will not be financial or not directly financial. The returns will be
intellectual, we say?
Intellectual, cultural, the development of our young people. So there are a lot of people who want to invest in that. We're here because we've got investors in exactly that, in higher education in Egypt. So
and any plans to open new campus elsewhere?
No plans, but people come to us from time to time. President al-Sisi wants this to be the year of education in Egypt. The government is working to attract foreign investors to the new capital, to build several campuses there. Egypt is pushing very much, and we're trying to help, for foreign partner universities to come here and establish either new universities with new Egyptian ones or with existing Egyptian universities, to raise the quality standards and to get the international accreditation that AUC has.
So will AUC have any partnerships with such universities in the new capital?
Not in the way that the government and the investors have sought. In fact, investors have approached us to say, would you consider opening a branch campus? And I said, really, my trustees you'd have to convince them, and I think it would be difficult. Right now we have the space we have here. We want to develop this new campus, sustain our downtown campus, and continue to set the quality standards, not just for Egypt, but for the region. You know, we're one of, I think, 3 universities in the region that are accredited by the United States, us, AUB, and maybe 4. AUK, I think, might be. American University in Kuwait, and Sharjah.
And Sharjah, yes.
Yeah. I know that American University at Soleimani in Iraq is working for it. I don't know if they have it yet. So to sustain those quality standards takes a lot of resources and attention. So for now, we don't want to overextend. We want to stay focused on 2 things: the highest quality at the most affordable price. We have to always remember we are a tuition-driven university. We have to keep this experience affordable for the Egyptian middle class.
We'd like to thank you so much for being here with us today, Mr. President. It was our pleasure.
Pleasure, thank you.
In the coming 100 years, we look forward to see AUC a better place with a better ranking, and to continue to be the center of exchange of knowledge in Egypt and globally. We will keep on working on making AUC proud. This was Salma Nassar and Layla Amara from AUCTV. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.